and Mackie.
Hey everyone, thank you Nighthawk for that wonderful introduction. Thank you. As you always do, really important to remember Nighthawk. I'm Dave. Mackie's not with me at the moment, but he is working to get home in time for at least the second hour or close to the end of this first hour, and he'll join us when he can, which is fine, not a problem. We are Shiny Side Out, and we're coming to you through WZZR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio. So that's the website, revolution.radio. If you go to that link, then you can listen to this live. You can catch our show on YouTube. And if you do that, then we get to see that someone's watched it at least, if nothing else. And that kind of brings a smile to our face. Now, if you can, share, comment, like, and subscribe to Shiny Side Out RR on YouTube, then that'll help us out immensely. Do that because you know that they don't pay very much at all. In fact, we were demonetized a long time ago, and we want to be able to get back to that if we can. All right, so let's do that. Do that for us. It'd be great, but it does help. Since we don't get paid from it, everything we do is free. So every single week we do this for free. We have 3 shows a week that we do, and we enjoy doing it. But you know, you can help us out, you can help the station out 2 different ways. You can donate to the station, or you can just buy some stuff, some merchandise from the station's website. It's fantastic. Do that. All the artwork's done by Amad Painter, and happy birthday to you, by the way, Amad. There you go. Now, we have a website as well, shinysideout.net.au, I do believe it is, and you can go there and there's a merch link to just a few things that we've put together that lets other people know that you listen to Revolution Radio, and because they're dual branded, Revolution Radio and Freedom's Side and Shiny Side Out. That's who we are. Yes. All right. So Revolution Radio is home to fresh, unfiltered ideas and conversations that you can have in the chat room. Just remember the days, the good old days, when you could talk about things with your friends. Well, now you really can't, because the places that we talk about things with our friends is online. And that's disappearing faster than you can imagine. The ability to talk online with your friends and say what you want. Think about this for a minute. In the news that's coming up that I'll talk about, there are things happening where they've been able to analyze the perpetrator's online presence and determined whether they are, in fact, a terrorist or not, by the way they communicate with their friends. And that's going to apply to all of us, as long as they have something to be able to facilitate that need of theirs, not ours. We don't need that, but they feel they do, and they being all of the agencies, regardless of how many letters they have, whether it's 3, 4, 5, I don't really care. The governments of the world want it in place. They want to be able to do things like, say, like the Australian government wants to be able to prevent you from doing memes against the Prime Minister, the head of the country in the public service. They want to do that. So because he doesn't like the memes, the memes, that's really bad. Can we stop it? Sure, why not? Says one of his advisors. Really? Yeah, just say, I don't like the memes, I want all the memes to get deleted. Good luck with that. So, this is show number 634. 634. the 634th show that we've done in Shiny Side Out brand, and where I think we've gone past that now with the Plato's Cave, since we do 2 a week. That's quickly catching it, if not already caught it. But it's going to take some time, and I can't even remember when we started Plato's Cave, but I hope that you're listening to both of those shows. They're different. They're not the same. In this one, we have 1 hour of current affairs, I suppose you could call it that. Some might call it news, but really we're dissecting the news more so than announcing the news. If it's new to you, then we've announced it to you, but we like to talk about what the news means. But on Plato's Cave, we don't necessarily dissect the news as much as talk about the reasons behind why we might be told that this stuff is happening. And I think that's a really big distinction between the two of them. The two brands, Shiny Side Out and Plato's Cave. Plato's Cave, if you're not aware, if you're only a listener for Shiny Side Out, we have 7 a.m. Both Tuesday and Thursdays in Eastern US time. It's when we do our Plato's Cave for 1 hour only. It's a very, very short show. 1 hour is not enough to talk about anything specific for any great depth, but we do try to bring you what we can, our perspective on it, and we measure it against historical practices of very similar kinds of things, if we can, if it's relevant, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, enough of that. You can catch any of the hosts on revolution.radio via an online website, either through your smart device or on a home computer for that matter, or you can grab an application to listen so that you can hear that on a smart device somewhere, anywhere on the planet. In fact, in the ISS, and I suppose from the moon in some day, right? Or even on Mars, when we become interplanetary. And we can do that. That's what you can do. Or you can simply have an old school radio kind of looking thing that's digital, audio broadcast, DAB, digital radio, and you can dial in as much as you like on a Grace tabletop digital radio. That's a specific brand that we promoted for the whole time we've done Shiny Side Out. I think for the first 20 shows we didn't even know they existed, but shortly after that we did. Now, if you missed the previous show, the show that came on before we did today, that was Solaris's show, Solaris Blue Raven, and she has a great show. And today, if you've missed it, bugger. But that's okay. You can just jump in the archives. They're free. You can download shows. They're all in MP3 format, so they're really easily consumed on any device. Download them, and it's just a date format. There's all folders. Kind of reminds me of DOS days, but that's kind of the way it is. It's an open FTP, and you can grab all the things you want. Then you can listen to them, binge them in your own time, and voila, you have consumed, binged, if you will, done what you want with those. And today is no different for Solaris's shows. Awesome show, great guest, always fantastic. Today she had Taylor Jensen, and they were talking about ETs and the film industry. I'm going to have to download that from the archives and listen to that myself because I totally missed it. I was out and about. Now, I'm broadcasting to you from lands that were previously inhabited by the traditional custodians of the land, and their mob, like you could call it like a tribe/mob, they refer to themselves as being in mobs. Their mob name was Darkinjung, and that's the area, and their area was quite expansive. Like when Meki's on board, his Daruk people, the same style, the same amazing amount of land. The Darkinjung's area also includes Mount Yengo, where that is the origin of humanity, say the Aboriginals. One father, 3 sons arrived, here they were, and one died and one stayed behind and one left with the father. And they started humanity. That's their story. And we've been to Space Rock, where that was where Biami, the father, was meant to have stood. And I love the fact that they have, space aliens, I suppose, another race coming down and doing that to us, creating us. So it's not unlike all the other stories around the world, with a single father and 3 sons. Now, Meki and I, we do pay our respects and our understanding, and we're learning as much as we can from the traditional owners of the land, and we do pay our respects to them, to the elders of those mobs, past, present, and future, and we'll go into the future. Now, pity Meki's not with me yet, but that's fine. He can take his time. I'm okay with it. What I want to first talk about, and Gear Jammer, I want to say hello to Johnson and Co. Jones Inc., myself, Unshaken, who else is in there? Lukewarm, and is there another? Oh yeah, Gear Jammer. Thanks, Gear Jammer. Hello to you in the chat room, and this is one of the features of being on this station, is that you can communicate with people outside of radio. They can be in the chat room. We're in the chat room all the time, and usually I'm even there after hours and for other people's shows, and I like to join in the conversation, which is how I got started. I joined a roundtable. I know the friends of the show know the story, but for those who are new, I just called into a roundtable to give my point, my side of the story. The thing that was being discussed to me wasn't sufficient. They weren't covering all of the bases, and so what I did, I filled in the gaps, and when I did that, the Nighthawk pulled me out of that into his own Skype chat and was speaking to me and just said, I really like the way that you presented the information. I want to give you your own show. And I went, wow, that's pretty cool, because I'd been on Triple M here in Australia, but that wasn't a forever job. And he said, no, I said, oh, you got your own show. And he goes, I don't think that's how it works, Nighthawk. I'll put together a little plan, a little format of what we're doing. I'll send it to you. You'll approve it, and that's what we'll maintain. And that's what I did, and he immediately replied back, yes. So, how many days a week do you want? 7? No. I couldn't do 7. At the time, I had a regular paying job. That's not going to cut it. When am I going to sleep? So, once we found a good time to work it, then I said, once a week, mate, that's all I can give you. And then we did, 10 years at least, I think, and 3 years, because we're in the 13th year. And Meki said, you know what? I want my own show, and I want to call it Plato's Cave. I said, just talk to the producers. I'm sure there's some space somewhere. And then we got another 2 shows, because he called me into that one. Because when I got the show, the first person I called was Meki. I said, hey, we got a show. Our history together was talking conspiracies and ideas and outside of the mainstream media news to each other, and informing each other every time we met. Sometimes this would be at one of his own dinner parties where he'd spent 12 hours cooking for all the guests, because he's a pretty good chef. And I can't say pretty good, he's really good. And all the foods they're not always exotic, but they fringe on, there's a collection like a classic, fringe, and from maybe a 5-course meal. Right? So total respect to Meki and his skills. But we would talk over the dinner table, a number of wines or scotches or whatever, bourbons, whatever you want under our belt. And we weren't holding back because initially you just, you don't want to really tell other people too much about it. And then we would get into conversation, but our little bubble that we're talking inside, it's kind of like the kind of silence, I suppose, from Maxwell Smart. We're kind of talking like that, just between each other, and then we realize that that bubble now extends to everyone else on the table, and they're not talking, they're listening. And then we found out from, partners or, someone else within the group, as they were going home, they were going, wow, those guys are talking all kinds of crazy. But then they stopped thinking about it. So when you tell someone else something that you've only just learnt, or what have you, not pressing upon you any restrictions there, but if you're talking to people and then you leave their company, do you keep talking about it? Well, we found no one did. No one continued to talk about it and realized that we were kind of entertaining them like a radio show or a TV show. We were giving them a lot of content, and usually a little too much content for them to be able to process it. And once we got the show, we very quickly discovered the big problem about telling someone from your perspective with a whole bunch of research under your belt. Anything that differs more than one stepping stone down the path you took is going to break them. You tell anyone anything more, like, I don't know, if you listen to this station, you're aware of this, right? So someone you've never met before that says something about, chemtrails. And having done all of the research myself on this, I discovered that NASA had, for instance, been working on alternate fuels. Is their excuse, and I'm only giving you their message here, believe what you want out of it. But the proof in the pudding is they produced a fuel which creates clouds as an exhaust. The exhaust leaves a trail. The prior fuels burnt very cleanly and left a condensation trail, a contrail, which disappeared rather quickly after the plane had moved, doing something like 400, 500 kilometers an hour, and behind it would be a very short trail that would disappear. And it would maintain its length from the plane as the plane flew, like it was dragging something behind it, but it wasn't. It was just simply the amount of time that the hot air diffused in the cold air and became normalized, and the contrail would evaporate. Now we don't see that. Now we see a perpetual cloud left behind in dead straight lines, depending on where you live. You'll see this crisscrossing of them, and if you're under many different flight paths at different altitudes, you'll see it looks like someone's just got a marker pen and drawn crazy lines all over the sky, right? And as they move over the landscape, you'll see them, they don't dissipate, they just seem to blend into each other and become a large cloud mass. Extraordinary. And that was all designed to occur. What we're seeing is, rather than it being a button inside the aircraft that says chemtrail, which they'd never do, because it means everyone else that has to know about that button and what it does becomes implicated in a secrecy act, which I don't think, now talking to some pilots, they don't have that. There is no button that does it. It's just in the fuel. Everyone's oblivious, and there we're leaving these lines in the sky which cools the surface down because it reflects more energy. Everything's joules of energy, right? So it just reflects it off into space. Great. That is the real thing. If there's barium and aluminium oxide and all these things that we claim are falling out of the sky because of the chemtrails, don't hate me on this. That's from the 2,500 nuclear explosions there's been in Earth's atmosphere over time. The radium is there. All the things bearing. You think about all the things that have fallen out of the sky. It's called precipitated out of solution, and it's rained down. So people test the soil under their house and they find that's clean. Outside in the soil, it's contaminated, and they assumed that the thing they were seeing in the sky was also the thing that was causing it. They're two different things, but the clouds that are made out of the plane's exhaust, intentional to cool the planet, and the things that sound on the ground is just a happenstance because it's everywhere. We have forever chemicals raining down on us all the time. There's no water source on the planet which is safe now. Microplastics are in the ocean, but they're also in the rainwater. So are the forever chemicals, and even Xanax and the things that were taken a lot, tranquilizers were taken a lot in the 70s and through the 80s. They're in the forever chemicals, which are in rainwater now. So just concern yourself with sticking to something which the first stepping stone when you're telling someone else about it. Like if someone said to you, hey, it happens to me all the time, I heard you're into conspiracy theories. Well, I'm not into them more so than I look into them, but I don't believe all of them the way that they're dressed. I don't believe them the way that they're presented to us, because you've got to think about all of the... which one was it? Not Project Dolphin. The one that was the misinformation thing from the CIA, right? That was all discovered through Freedom of Information Act, and it was clearly identified that they were trying to try to group people into thinking a certain way by misrepresenting information, and that was good. They loved that, right? So how much of what we're seeing and researching has been affected by those projects in order to lead people astray, make them think a little bit more, or connect things together in, you could call it astroturfing, where you try to find something on the internet and you go to 100 sites and they all say identical information, but that's not true. If you use your consensus abilities to look at all the information, you'll come back with the wrong idea. Because at the moment, it's very hard. Anything after the internet was born is on the internet. Very little of what was pre-internet is on the internet. Very little. Libraries are the only way to go there, and who knows who was paying for that, either the research or the book, or who knows, right, where the money came from. So be careful of the bias. And this is the real issue. So if we were talking, if someone came up to you and said, all right, 9/11 or moon landing or JFK, what are the classics? How do you answer it? Okay, well, I'll start with 9/11. Rather than giving them the exact detail as a detailed plan of like maybe chronological order, first this happened, no, don't. Just say Building 7. That's your answer. If someone doesn't know anything about 9/11, was it a planned event? Just say Building 7. Let the person do the research. If they're truly interested in knowing, because they'll go, what's Building 7? Aha, you find out. And then they discover that the building appears in every aspect to be a controlled demolition. Not the Twin Towers, just a building that wasn't even hit by a plane, that had a small fire that was extinguished, that had a steel inner skeleton structure, which had the agencies in it, which you can see footage, and there's an undoctored versions of those footages, because some actually show maybe, it's really too grainy. They've kind of made a little GIF out of it or something, and then that's been turned back into video again. Now you'll find some pretty good footage of that. that building collapse, even though the BBC in England knew that it had collapsed before it collapsed, and they were trying to say that it had collapsed, but you could see it in the background. It was still there in their footage. Hadn't collapsed yet, but their time was wrong. So when they went live with that, trying to tell everyone that it had collapsed, the actual live footage showed it was still there. And anyway, that's what you do. Don't break people. Whatever you do not break people. Don't break their mind by trying to tell them too much information. JFK, you go, magic bullets, ridiculous. But yet that was the determination of the court. Why? To make the problem go away. They didn't want the real perpetrator to be found. They just wanted Oswald to be blamed for it, and then that'll do, yeah? Yes, that'll do. That's all they wanted. They just wanted that. They didn't want any more. The moon landing, my answer is always, and until proven otherwise, because it's dwindling as we speak, the amount of information. But I don't believe they went there on Apollo 11. I don't think they landed on 11. And the other astronauts that went and did things, I'm sure they went. I'm sure of it. But 11, don't think so. I think it was just a let's beat the Russians, competition, doesn't matter, and do what you have to do to make that work. Because I don't think we're ready. Not quite ready yet. But we have to do it. So that's what I think. They're my thoughts. I'm not saying that I'm right. That's how I interpret the information that I've researched to find out. And even with Marilyn Monroe's death as a result of JFK, there was people unalived. There was a researcher. She used to be on a show called What's My Line? And she was taken out. She was writing a book. She'd done all the research. She was about to go public with it about Marilyn Monroe's death. And she was unalived through that. That's just terrible. There's episode before and episode after of What's My Line, where the cast were doing a live to air as well live, and they were completely devastated. They could barely hold their emotions back enough to be able to do the show. It was a tragedy. But anyway, having said all that, look, what we're seeing now in Australia specifically is a lot of media on knife violence. There's a lot of people suddenly just being broken, and either there was a guy in a shopping centre, just like the Eastern Suburbs one in New South Wales, the Bondi shopping centre one, if you want to look it up. That's one. That's where the guy stabbed unalived a whole bunch of people with the edge of a blade. There was another one just the other day where the guy went into a shop and stole a knife and then proceeded to attempt to unalive people. And last night there was I think a 16-year-old kid who was unalived by a police officer with a single shot, fatal shot. Then yesterday I think there was another one, a knife-wielding person somewhere in Melbourne. What's different? What's different? When I look at all of these stories, I'm wondering how many of those went unannounced in the past, because I'd like to be able to do a comparison. When you look online on our Bureau of Statistics website in Australia, the data ends in 2019. There isn't any more data available in recent times of how many knife and gun injuries or fatal injuries there have been. We know that there's a decline since we did the gun buyback of people fatally not surviving or being unalived by a GSW. But we're not seeing, at the time you could see the blade unaliving data, which was rising. As someone will find something to do something to somebody else with, and it's all bad, and you really need to think very seriously about yourself if you think that that's a solution to anything. If you're being attacked, I absolutely grant you the power that is invested in you in being the country with the laws you have, only to be able to do what you need to do to defend yourself if you're being attacked, using the laws in the countries that you're in. I don't condone any violence at all, but if someone was attacking me, I'm sure I would want to fight back, and I certainly would attempt that. I'm not saying give up yourself to somebody else's whim. This is the problem when people take it upon themselves to go and act out an idea that they have, not fully fledged. It's clearly in their mind, it's the answer to their problem, whatever their problem happens to be. I'm not saying it's right, I'm definitely not saying that. But this is the thing. So, gun violence causing fatal injuries, can't really say injury, people being unalived by an explosive thing that sends a projectile, those can disappear by doing the same thing that we do to fire. Fire is heat, fuel, and oxygen. Take any of those away, there's no fire. I shouldn't say take. One of those needs to go away. Now, the other is, this is the confusion I want to tell you about. So you have those same three things. You have someone in a situation with a reason to do something. So someone's out and about with something they have on their person. They've got them out and about where there's other people, and you have the reason for doing something. Now, I'm going to focus on reason here, because in the past, with open carry, the open carry people aren't doing anything to anybody, right? It's not open carry that's causing it, not having the thing on their person that's causing it. It's their reasoning behind doing the thing they do. So you can be out and about with a reason but not with an implement. That's going to stop something from happening, because the person might be all angst up to the hilt, but they're out and about with other people. They don't do anything. They have nothing. Yeah? But the real problem here is we've educated people so poorly that they're unable to identify the thoughts they're having are bad. They're unable to identify that that's the wrong path to take to enact the things they're thinking about. So they are out and about. They have something to use, and they're being controlled by their idea that the thing is okay to do. That's where we're really failing in our society. We're failing in this reasoning component where people think it's the right solution. That's it. Yes, sure, you can take away sharp objects, blunt objects. You can take away guns. Sure. You can't take away a fist or something that someone might improvise at the time, but we can educate and ensure that our people have the right frame of mind to ensure that they don't enact a thought that's going to be detrimental to someone else. That's crazy talk, Dave, right? I hear you all thinking, maybe I'm pretending that I can hear you, I can't. Mecki and I talk about this a lot. And it's very difficult, I suppose, for people to admit that we've failed any way in society. It's very difficult to admit this. I know, I get this. Because how could we fail? Aren't we like the best? Don't we do the best? Don't we have the best schools? Don't we talk to people? Yeah, we're all kind of social. How far back do those thoughts go? I wonder. Is it parenting? Is it drug abuse? Is it all of them? Right? Is it their social environment that's destroyed them? Is it the fact that they're just limited themselves to playing online shooting games? I'm not blaming gaming. I'm blaming the reasoning behind the thing the person does. Everything is a contributing factor to someone's mental health. I know I've played games all my life since games came out. I've played computer shooting games and strategic battle games, flight sims, and I now race in car sims. I don't do that on the street. I just don't. I have my car sim and I compete. And it's all legit. It's iRacing for that matter. It's not a set a course or there's so many of them. It's not one of those. This is it builds you to be a racing car driver in real life. It's what I'm too old to that, so I realize that I'm going to be limited to this environment only. That's fine. I've been around a racetrack in a race car. I've driven one and I like it, but I'm too old to compete. I'm too old. No one's going to sponsor me. Forget it, right? I do have a sponsor in iRacing though, who looks after me in car parts. Thank you very much. So Mace Engineering, just saying, I remember when I was playing first-person shooters, and for the first time, once and only once in my entire life, someone did something who was just absolutely terrible to somebody else in front of me. And the solution for me was to pick up my rocket launcher or something. Oh, if only I had my rocket launcher in my inventory, I'd take that person out. Kind of like a protector act. Right? And I thought to myself immediately, whoa, I crossed the line. There's a line there, and I think my thoughts crossed that line. And I recognized where I was and the position and the perspective, and I never thought about that again. I never did it again. I never thought those thoughts again, and I dialed back how much I was playing. When you're playing all day, you might be dreaming that you're still playing. And that's too far. There's got to be a limit. I'm not saying video games are the blame, because they're not. They're not, because they're totally fun. They do teach you a whole bunch of things. And the skills that you can gain from it are strategic skills. It doesn't matter if it's a first-person shooter or it's a strategy game, because you wouldn't do this in real life. You wouldn't test the boundaries of these parameters in real life. You're not going to walk into a bar as an adult, find the biggest dude in there and go, "You're an idiot." You're not going to do that. Why? Because that guy is going to either take you out right there and then, or say, "Let's go outside and deal with this one-on-one," where he just punches you once and you're down. I'm not saying that's my experience. I'm just saying you can run the scenario in your mind, logically see its outcome, and that's why you don't do that. You don't hit on the person's girlfriend or push or shove the person, who's most likely going to do you damage. You don't. You've already understood that there's boundaries. So the people who are perpetrating the acts are these are the current ones in the media. I'm not going to talk about any others. Our news entities are telling us that one of them, through the police, say that they've already announced one of them as a terrorist attack, and the other, that was the the bishop who was stabbed live on air because he was being radicalized inside small, isolated chat rooms, like I think WhatsApp group or something. And he was 15 or something. That's terrible. That someone in our society should be, let's say, echo chambered into doing something. Yeah. I wonder how. I'm very careful how I use my words, and I certainly don't mean this against any lettered agency on the planet. But how much of a nudge would it take for someone to be coerced by a lettered agency in the world to do something? I wonder how susceptible are humans to AI steering in social media? I wonder. These are good questions to ask. I am sure that the big ones that we all use, social media apps, and those of you who don't use them, I applaud you. Well done. But they're free for a reason. It's because the governments of the world and other agencies can buy data out of there or have free access to it when needed, right? So they can see your entire history, whatever you've typed, ever, anywhere, and there you go. So, but I'm also sure that there's algorithms, well, let's call it, if you want to call it AI, call it AI. But if you accept the possibility that, say, Facebook could steer people into being what we would call in Australia happy little Vegemites. There was an advertising term used for the promotion of Vegemite. That's the spread. And if you're interested in tasting it, make it thinner than you would if you'd put it on there and then scraped it all off. Whatever's left, that's how I think you should start. It's extremely salty, but it's kind of good, and it's like eating a stock cube, like a beef stock cube that's got salt on it. But it's if you do it pretty thin, if you're not used to it, that's the only way to eat it. I don't mind it, maybe not as thick as I would put, say, Nutella, because that's way too much. But it's kind of good, and you kind of get used to it. But it's better than, and I'm going to cause arguments here, Marmite and all the other ones that are very similar to Vegemite. Vegemite, to me, and my taste, I grew up with it. It's the best of all of those for those flavored spreads. But you do need to butter the bread first, and anyway, and it's really good if it's on toast. And I also put peanut butter on top of that, and it's kind of like salted peanuts. So maybe that's another way into there. So how easy would it be? Let's make a fictitious argument here. How easy would it be for Facebook AI to direct people, steer them into being good citizens? I would say, if in my fictitious scenario, I would suggest that would be completely easy. I feel like it's happened to me already. I feel like the things that I used to see on, hey, guess what? Meckie's joined us. Crowd goes wild.
The wild goes crowd. The wild goes completely crowd.
Oh man, I've got a bleeding nose, Mecky.
Oh Jesus! Did I do that?
Sure. No. All I did was I just scratched the outside of my nose, and it just started bleeding. Anyway.
There you go, scratching yourself again. We've talked about that, Dave.
Yeah, I know. I remember the intervention.
You do?
Yeah.
You know me better than mine.
You were there. You were there.
Oh, you guys are killing me.
Oh man, this is really bad. So look, I'm going to bail. I just wanted to finish my thought, and it was that social media it would be very easy for social media to steer people into being good citizens.
Oh,
And if they can do that, then they could steer you wherever they wanted to. Anyway, I'll be back.
Yeah, no, you staunched the bleeding, my friend. I apologize for my tardiness. I had some urgent business to attend, but I think you've been following the news for quite a number of days to mention it. There seems to be an inordinate number of attacks with sharp implements recently in Australia, specifically in Australia, and another one just today. A young man, boy, even attacked someone else yet again with a sharp implement. Yeah, it's like people talk about the gun control. Sure, I mean, I understand it, but just see, the thing is, I think gun education is better. Gun control, I don't see why anybody should have a fully automatic assault rifle. I think it's a bad idea. Unless maybe in Afghanistan or Switzerland, I don't know. But you don't need it. I think. But regular rifles and handguns, if you're shooting or hunting, that's fair enough. It's okay. But the critical thing here is gun education. Because if you don't do harm to someone, that's important. That's the way we're doing it. If you want to do harm to someone, you'll find a way to do it. It's not good, but it's what it is. Okay? So gun education. I learned to do that when I was like 6 or 7 years old. Shooting at that time as well. It might be a handgun on the rifle. But it was a 30 years old. It wasn't highly special control. Bullets. Anyway. Yeah, so my grandfather pulled it down. Very tight in. How to load it, how to safely handle it, and how to respect it. Respect any kind of weapon. Both for yourself and for others. It's super important. And that's what I think is important. And responsible television. So I see a lot of people on the internet. A lot of Muppets here. I mean this in the nicest possible way. A lot of Muppets seem to be holding guns. I don't think it's a good idea. I really don't. We gotta draw a line somewhere, right? Some people shouldn't own guns. Full stop. But education, right? Well, social media tells something as well, right? Absolutely. But agenda we support. People say that we support. Social media will drive your agenda all the way to the finish line, which is brilliant, because that's what it does. Itself, because it's a mindless engine. Yeah, that's what happened. That's real. It's like, it's very difficult as well. But if you can, you make the whole time right, so that's what you should do. So if I look at the news, arrest protesters in the United States across all of them. It's now over 1,000 these tweets have been arrested. It's a lot. Right there. So, is this going to be a trigger for something? Because I was thinking about this, right? I mean, what does it take for something that says it's going to be real change? That's the answer. I don't really know. When it came to the French Revolution, what was the final straw? what was the final act, or the final thing? There's something that triggered something else, which triggered the avalanche. Something. World War One, right? We can trace it. It's an excuse. It was powder keg. It had already been lit. The fuse had been lit. It was just, a matter of time as to when it was going to blow in Europe. And then the assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and that it wasn't the reason for World War I. We all know this, right? But it certainly was used as the excuse to start World War I. In fact, people didn't even realize they were starting World War I because of all the secret tradings that existed. But the question remains: what is the point that triggers change, sometimes revolutions? Is it? Sometimes it's student protests. We've seen in the past it is student protests, right? It could be taxation, unfair laws. It could be just having pushed that person just a little bit too far. The wrong person pushed a little bit too far at the wrong time, and all of a sudden, it's all over again, and something else starts becomes alive. So, the honest truth is that I don't know. I don't know what that is, and I don't know what the trigger points are. Some of them are probably deliberate, they've been premeditated and planned. So it's hard to say what triggers what. I mean, I looked at the what happened a few years ago on Capitol Hill, the almost insurrection, I guess, call it, right? And that could have gone a completely different way if people had mobilized. We could be living in a very different world right now if that had actually caught fire, right? If that had somehow inspired something more, but it didn't. The question is why? Why didn't it? It didn't, right? Or the the death of Floyd. Well, that could have triggered something, but it ultimately didn't. So there's always a question of what triggers what, and there have been revolutions since then, all over the world, in the Middle East, in Eastern Europe, Asia, in South America. So revolutions, it's not like revolutions don't happen anymore. Of course they do, but they don't seem to be happening too much in first world nations. That doesn't seem to happen. Various reasons, but the ultimate lesson we take away from this is that good economic outlook and hope for yourself and your children is a key factor in whether or not you're willing to change the system. Whether you're willing to stand on the barricades and say, hey, this far and no further. Because if you don't have any hope, what have you got to lose? But if you do have hope, and your children might have a good future and you're living a comfortable life, then you would not beat the drum for a revolution. Why would you? It makes no sense. So you have to see how far can people be pushed. That's the question. How far can you be pushed? Sorry, Dave, I was just I was just having stream of consciousness here. You heard about the other attack with the sharp object today, right?
Yeah, I did.
I mean, what is that? I mean, what?
We've only got a minute left.
Yeah, I know, but it's just a lot of that now. It's an agenda. I don't know. Maybe there's. How's your?
I simply raised the question: how easy would it be for social media companies to nudge people? If they could nudge them in a positive direction, then it could be done the other way. And I'm not saying they're doing it. It was a fictional scenario. And that's the end of the first hour. We're going to be back again for the second hour. And our topic is the parasitic system, fiat currency, and fractional reserve lending, part 2. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we're going to start a new stream for the second hour. Like, subscribe, comment, and share it.